Hello, everyone. My name is Salman, and I'm a solution architect at AWS. Today, I want to talk to you about how you can take your cloud security to the next level using Prowler and Security Hub. Let's start with Prowler. Prowler is a open source command line tool to help you with AWS security assessments, hardening, auditing, and incident response. It follows the guidelines of the CIS, the Center of Internet Security, and Amazon Web Services Foundation's benchmark, which includes more than 100 checks related to things like GDPR, HIPAA, PCI, ISO, SOC, and a bunch of other ones. It has a ton of features, over 200 checks to help you cover your security best practices across all your AWS regions and most of your AWS services. Prowler can be run from your workstation. It can be run from an EC2, Fargate, or maybe another container, code build, and also Cloud9. If you want to learn more about Prowler, you can take a look at their GitHub documentation. I will link it below. Next, let's talk about Security Hub. AWS Security Hub provides you with a comprehensive view of your security state within your AWS environment. It details compliance and security standards and best practices. Essentially, it centralizes and prioritizes your security findings across your AWS accounts, services, and supported third-party partners to help you analyze your security trends and identify the highest priority security issues so that you can address those first. In our case, the third-party tool we're going to be talking about is Prowler. In Security Hub, there are two important things that we're going to be talking about today. First is findings, and second is insights. Findings are potential security issues. Security Hub aggregates those, normalizes them, and prioritizes those security alerts or findings from AWS and the different third-party services like Prowler and provides that to you. Now, an insight is a collection of related findings. So Security Hub offers managed insights using filters that can be used to tailor your unique environment. So, for example, you can put together an insight that helps you identify a collection of EC2 instances that are missing security patches for the most important security vulnerabilities you want to address right now. Or maybe you want to make a list of S3 buckets with public read or write permissions that you want to go and address. A lot of this will make more sense when we get into the console. So let's do that. Before we do that, let's just understand what we're going to be looking at. Real quick, this is a high-level architecture of what we're going to be demoing today. In order to run this, we're going to be using code build. As I mentioned earlier, you can use EC2, you can use your own workstation, you can use containers, whatever you want to run Prowler. In this case, I just chose code build because it only charges you for the minutes that you are building and running the Prowler assessment. So I thought it was the well-architected option. Then we're going to send those security findings after Prowler has run its assessment using a format called ASFF or AWS Security Findings Format. Security Hub will then process those findings using that standard format, which eliminates the time that is typically used for data conversion and that kind of thing. So largely the demo is going to focus on that, but I'll also show you how you can leverage BI tools to generate a graphical view of your security landscape. There's a straightforward integration that you can do with EventBridge and Kinesis to send that data into S3 form of storage and then create some quick site dashboards. I'll show you that. I'm not going to explain how EventBridge or Kinesis works because that's out of the scope of the video. But if you want me to make a video that focuses specifically on those, let me know in the comments. All right, let's jump into the demo. So let's start in code build. Here, you might want to set up some sort of automation to run the Prowler assessment, monthly, weekly, whatever makes sense for you. You can do that pretty easily with code build. In this case, I have a Lambda over here that essentially does that. So we can schedule this to run at whatever interval we want to do these assessments and, take a look at our environment. But for the purposes of the demo, I'm just going to start one manually so that we have something to look at. So let's start that. Okay, so it tells us we've successfully started our build. And of course, there's going to be a log group that tracks all of the different changes that are happening so that if something breaks, we have that visibility. We can go into CloudWatch and track the deployment and retrace whatever breaks. We also have to configure, of course, our IAM policies for each of the services that we want to analyze. We All of that is done in the back. We're good to go. So you can see here that it started running. And if we go here into phase details, we can see that it's been submitted, queued, provisioning, downloading resource, and the actual assessment is beginning to run. And if we go to the very bottom here, we'll see eventually that some of these results will start populating. It'll take a second. I'll come back to this. In the meantime, let's go into Security Hub and take a look at it. So here we go in Security Hub. This is the homepage. We'll start here. You can see there's a nice little summary, but let's go into our findings. So here we go. We have a list of records, and as you can see, these findings are different issues that Prowler has identified in our environment using its automated security checks. So we can see that these are classified by different attributes, which we can filter. I'll show that in a second, but there's high, there's critical, and so on and so forth. So if, for example, let's choose one here, it tells us that we need to check to make sure Lambda functions have resource-based policies set as public. And that's critical. This was created as of the last assessment that I ran right before I started the video to make sure that this works. And so we can see that there's also nice little timestamps that are provided to us. I also mentioned that there are filters that can help us search through the different findings that we have. So if you look through these, you might notice that they're all listed as Prowler, but there are also AWS recommendations that get filtered into this dashboard. So if we wanted to take a look at just this AWS specific ones and discard Prowler, or maybe we have multiple tools that we're using and we want to focus on that specific third-party tool, we can do that by filtering by company name. So we would do that simply here by saying we want to filter by company name and we want to take a look at AWS ones. It'll run and then all of the findings that we'll see will be only AWS ones. And of course, this is just a simple one, but there are a ton of different mechanisms that you can use to filter these. You can filter them by criticality, you can filter them by specific instances, by description, by container name, anything that you can think of. There's a mechanism of filtering these so that you have a view of what you are specifically looking for. Now, let's quickly jump back into this code build just so that I can show you that it is working. So it's run a bunch of stuff, right? And if we go to the very bottom here, very bottom over here, we can see that it's starting to generate reports, right? So for example, ensure that IAM policies require at least one uppercase letter. That's a medium priority, and we are not currently adhering to that. So we're failing inside of our current region, which is US West 2, and then it gives us remediation advice. And all of this is taken here, which is of course hard to read, and populated into this dashboard. If I refresh here, we'll see that they're slowly coming in, right? From a few seconds ago, a few minutes ago. So we can see all of these. And it also tells us our compliance status. So whether we're meeting or not meeting that, and we can address that and automatically change that when we rerun the assessment, or we can manually do it as well. And we can also connect this to an internal ticketing system So if we have an internal system in our company where we address problems in the cloud, we can use an API called batch import findings to pull these findings from Security Hub into that system and then, distribute it to people, whatever our mechanism for addressing these is. So the integration is pretty straightforward. There is a integration tab here that shows other potential integrations that you can use in Security Hub. Look through these. We'll talk a little bit about a couple at the end, but there are a bunch here that fit different use cases. So you can just search those here. Two things we mentioned were findings and insights. We looked at findings, so let's take a look at insights. So as we said, an insight is an aggregate of findings related to some sort of issue, right? So there are some templates that are provided to you out of the gate here. So for example, this is one related to AWS resources that have the most findings, right? So the resources that have the most problem areas. If we clicked on that, then we can see that this list is provided along with some nice graphs that explain what is going on. And then we can create a specific insight from that. Or if we want to customize this to our needs, we can, you know, add whatever filter that we want and say maybe we only want to look at the AWS ones, and we can create that insight. Insight, my first insight. Save that. I recommend you probably use a better name, but if we go back into our general list of insights, we can filter it and look for, yeah, my first insight is right there. And so we're able to store these and take a look at them for point in time views at our security landscape. So it's a pretty straightforward integration, but a very useful one. The last thing I wanted to show was the visualization, right? So the visualization inside of Security Hub is pretty good, right? You have the filtering ability that you want. Developers are typically going to prefer this, but maybe there's a back office or this is presented to, executives to get backing and support for a security initiative that you want to do on your cloud. You probably want to generate some easier to read graphics, right? Because they probably don't understand what guard duty is and IAM and all of these things. So you can do that by using a service called QuickSight, which is just a BI tool. And if I come over here, I can show you one that I just quickly made. This is just a visualization that I quickly put together. You can see here that we can have counts of our records by severity. These are informational ones that don't necessarily pertain to a problem. We have 314 critical ones. We have 1,631 medium ones. We can do it by results. Here is the amount of tests that we're not passing. We can do it using uh, another kind of visualization. We can use a pie chart, bar graph, whatever. You can play with all of that here. It's pretty simple to do. So that's what I wanted to cover in the demo. Just a quick recap. We used code build Lastly, I want to talk about different tools that you can combine with Security Hub to provide different custom security assessments and reports. In this video, we focus largely on Prowler, but there are a bunch of other ones as you saw in the integration tab on Security Hub in the console. One of those is cloud splaining. Cloud splaining is an IAM AWS security assessment tool that identifies violations of least privilege and generates a risk prioritized HTML report. Here is a sample of one of those reports. So you can see here that it tells you about things like privilege escalation when someone's permissions increase and they're not supposed to, resource exposure, infrastructure modification, and data exfiltration. So that's when there's an unauthorized transfer of data. You can click on any of these like data exfiltration and see that there are specific metadata attributes associated with it. And you can take a look at those. It gives you the Amazon resource name so that you can go and address those. Another one is called Cloud Tracker, which helps you find overprivileged IAM users by comparing CloudTrail logs with policies. I'll link that in the description as well. There's another one called IAM Analyzer that helps you find resources that can be accessed by external entities so you can make sure that you're supposed to be accessing those specific things. And the last one I'll talk about is Scout Suite, which is another tool that provides a uniform report of your security landscape. So it's a open source security auditing tool, and it uses AWS APIs to gather configuration data for manual inspection and high risk areas. It was built by different security consultants and auditors to provide a point in time security view of the cloud account. Here is one of the dashboards that is created. And if you click on any of the issues, you get a more specific view of the issue so that you can go and address it directly. There are a ton of different third-party integrations that you can check out if you're interested. I will link the documentation that covers those below, but I'll end it here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was useful.